Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked. Here we go. Your dial set correctly, too. USA Prepares. We're delighted you're in class with us today. Nathan is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. I'm Vincent Finelli. Rich Scheben is with us, offgridmontana.com. Welcome, Rich Scheben.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Finelli. How are you doing this morning?
You know, I'm kind of chuckling. I was thinking about, we did a broadcast on Friday. We're talking about customer service and great customer service. Specifically, I mentioned Mossberg, and I had a problem with a shotgun, and the sight was broken on the rear. And I called them up, and they said, yeah, it sounds like your site's broken. Would it be okay if we sent you one? And I was talking about how great Mossberg's customer service is. They warranted it, no questions asked. I mean, they just tried to diagnose the problem. They said, yeah, it sounds like it's broken. Would it be okay if we send you one? So Kyle called up from Montana, and he said he was complaining about the worst customer service. And he mentioned Zeno Radio. And he said, they've got terrible customer service. Now I'm paraphrasing. So I said, well, I'll record this, and I will send it to Zeno so they can hear it. Well, I contacted Zeno, and I told him what's happening with, we're getting complaints on the air. And do you know that they fixed our listen line? It's working. Class, if you want to try it, it works. 605-477-3249. 605-477-3249. The telephone listen line is up. Thank you so much, Kyle, for your input. So there you have it. So, can you change a problem with a company? Yeah, you can. And Zeno jumped right on it and fixed it. So there you have it. So, Rich Scheben, what would you like to talk about today?
Well, I think when we talked privately the other day, you were telling me that your email has been fixed. Is that correct?
It has. It has. I'm going to check it one more time.
Okay.
Before we give out the exact email address.
I'll rattle off and remind some of the listeners, in case we have new listeners, what we talked about over the past couple of weeks. And basically, it refers to kind of a tangent of the book on Chapter 15, Creating Self-Sufficiency, Preparedness Schools. It's so obvious to most people that corruption, manipulation, deception, nepotism has basically trumped, no pun intended, hard work, effort, proven results, and qualifications. And it's very difficult for the average Joe to control their own destiny. So we don't know where this is going to go, but we're just going to try a little experiment depending on your feedback. And I know that needs to have an asterisk by it, because the powers that be with algorithms and Google and the censorship of Facebook, and I'm sure everybody has read over the past week that Zuckerberg spends more on lobbyists than the data breaches / censorship / privacy failures that he has had over the years. So it's pretty obvious that between the central banks and big corporations, they're trying to control everything, and their answer to everything is to buy everything, including using the taxpayer money. So what we're going to try and do, folks, is we got to look at the data. There's so many people in America, and you hear me talk about the poor / middle class, a.k.a. the bottom 93%, which is losing so much ground. And they don't have too many options. They don't have a plan. They're stuck. So what Vince and I were talking about doing is we have this email now. We want to talk about, since 90% of people live in urban, suburban America, obviously 10% live rural, what we're trying to do, and it doesn't have to be in Montana or Missouri. It can be in every state. Every state has rural areas. What we want to do is end this cookie-cutter, follower, politically correct subdivision mentality and get people out in the field controlling their own destiny. When I say in the field, relearning the old 19th century skills, but still dovetailing them with 21st century technology. You all know I live off-grid. Everything on my off-grid solar array is obviously electronic. So it's not like, I make a joke or people call me sometimes the mountain man or something because I hunt and fish and grow my own produce. But you know what? It's a combination of, again, 19th century skills and 21st century technology. Too much technology is pretty obvious that it creates despair, it creates depression, anxiety. We're teaching our children how to push buttons, manage paper, and be politically correct. So when you look at what people in America have to deal with, homeowners associations and covenants, and some people make the argument that, well, it's good for the value of your property. You could probably say that, but I can make a better argument that it tells you what to do, what to say, how to think, and how to live. Where some covenants, you can't cut your own trees, you can't have a rooster with your hens, or even have chickens in the first place. In other words, being self-sufficient. You can't have a fire pit in your yard. You can't grow a garden in your front yard. You have to paint your house with certain colors. You can make the argument of decreased value, but you can also make the argument because governments are broke, corporations are broke, households are broke. So you can make the argument that if there is a decrease in value of homes, if you have a garden in your front yard, if you have chickens in your backyard, for example, at least you have the opportunity to lower your property taxes because municipal governments are totally out of hand. And we all know that, I've mentioned this on the air several times here in Montana, we have a situation where the tax assessor didn't even come in my house, didn't even look in my window, and said I had modern heat, I had a finished basement, I had 2 finished bathrooms, and much more, which changed the value of my property. And basically, I'm sitting here without restitution, even though I've mentioned this on national radio many times. The little guy has no control of their own destiny because corporations and government is scratching for yields, looking for money, and they don't care about the little people. They don't care. So what we want to do is talk about the types of land. We want to make sure that the elite can't control the serfs in every way, shape, and form. We got to stop allowing the elite to poison us against ourselves and lowering the bars of standards and expectations for getting a job. And that's one of the reasons I talk about Economy 101 all the time. And we got to relearn adventure and freedom, liberty, curiosity of nature, and gain some skill sets, whether it be gardening, getting away from GMO produce, hormones, steroids, and antibiotics, raising animals, alternative energy, maybe hunting and fishing, preserving foods. So what we want to do, America, is look into, and we realize we're going to be censored and we're going to have the powers that be trying to corrupt the information coming in via email. But what we're thinking about doing is getting on, like GoToMeeting.com or Skype or some other type of venue where we can talk to people about ideas and solutions about being more self-sufficient and helping the people out because nobody is representing the people. And we're not trying to represent anybody. We're just trying to stick up for all the people who are in despair or drug use. I mean, who would have thought America, the number one killer for people 50 and under, is drug overdose? That's totally unacceptable. What we need to do is have talking posts, venues, and ideas and solutions for the little guy. And again, the little guy is the bottom 93% of America. Vincent?
Okay, I'm still working on the email. It will be instructor@usaprepares.com. Instructor, INSTRUCTOR, @usaprepares.com. I really like what you've got to say, and you're absolutely right. The little guy is being squeezed every way you can think of. And here's just one tiny, tiny, tiny example. I'm holding in my hand a postcard that we got. One of our children was traveling, and he needed to have his a borrowed vehicle engine diagnosed because the engine wasn't running right. So he pulled into a Firestone, and they got his name, and somehow they got his email address, and or his address, I should say, and they're sending us to our house this $15 off standard oil change. And if you read the fine print, and here's what this ties into what you're saying about companies looking for money. Okay, so it's a $49.99 oil change, but that's up to 5 quarts. And then it says there's an additional, you have to read the fine print. So that's up to 5 quarts. And there's an additional fee of up to $2.99, which may be added for filter recycling, oil filter recycling. I want to tell you that there's no such thing as oil filter recycling. Okay? Who's going to reuse an oil filter? Who's going to use one? Nobody. Okay? They're going to crush it. They might take the metal out of it. And before that, there was a when you got your oil changed at a service station, they would have a big tank, like a 500-gallon tank, and they would put the used oil in that. And then what would they do with the used oil? They would recycle it. That's what they tell you. We recycle it. That's not what they do. They use it. How do they use it? Well, it is sold by the service station to a company with a pickup, with a big truck, with a tank on it that collects the oil, and then they sell it to ships for what? Fuel. It doesn't get refined. It goes into ships as the fuel to power these cruise ships, for example. Or it gets mixed with asphalt to go on the roads. So your used oil you think is going to a refiner and it's going to become new motor oil or refined motor oil. No. It gets sprayed on dirt roads to control the dust. It gets used in ships, and it gets used in electric power generation and roads. And they sell it. And so your oil change company charges you a recycling fee. Isn't that amazing? We'll be right back. So Rich Scheben's with us, and we're talking about how companies want more and more and more. And I mentioned a very small thing about motor oil. And why does that tie in? Well, you can use motor oil to heat a building. Okay, they make furnace conversion units that you can buy that will spray motor oil, just like an oil burner, so you can use it. And what we're saying is there are alternatives. You don't have to fall in line with what everybody else is doing. And all of the motor oil that we have used and changed in the last 13 years, we still have it. We have it here. And I bought a 550-gallon tank to store it in. Why? Because it's too valuable to just bring over to the auto parts store to let them sell it to shipping companies to power their ships. Why should I donate it? Why should I? We can use it here at the farm. So that's just one little tiny thing we're talking about. We're talking about self-sufficiency. And Rich, you're saying that, well, let me say it this way. When I work on a project here at the farm, it's really a lot nicer when I work on it with someone else. So if I'm holding up this board, but Mrs. Finelli is holding up the other end of the board, and we're working on it together, it's a lot more pleasant than if I'm doing it by myself. If I'm baling hay, and Mrs. Finelli's in the field raking hay, boy, that sure is more pleasant, even though we're not in the same tractor. Okay, so there's that camaraderie. There's that doing things together feeling. Well, wouldn't it be nice if you could learn from someone who can teach you how to garden better, how to work on automobiles, trucks better, how to build that barn better, how to build the barn in the first place, how to mix concrete, how to sanitize your well, how to run wiring, how to plumb your house, how to fix your plumbing. Wouldn't it be nice if we had a little village that we had instructors who are willing to help each other do all those things and teach each other. Wouldn't that be nice? We're talking about the things that the public training camp doesn't teach. Do you think they teach gardening to all the students? Do you think they teach marksmanship, reloading, house wiring, plumbing, radio frequency dangers, how to paint, how to spackle, how to replace trim, wood trim, how to repair your roof, how to replace a window, how to cut glass, how to change your oil, when to change the oil, how to change the rear axle fluid, how to align your vehicle. Do you know, if you have a simple vehicle, you can do a basic alignment with a precision level and a tape measure or a board if it's long enough? They're really neat things that you can do. And we know how to do a lot of these things. But there are a lot of things that, boy, it sure would be nice to have other people who knew more than we do. Wouldn't that be nice? How about living off the grid? What's that like? Well, if you want to know, we can tell you. Because we know. Why do we know? Because we do it. And that's what Rich is talking about. He's talking about expanding what we do on the air to in person or over a conference call or a series of conference calls. Teaching you more in depth, answering your questions. Not like a YouTube video where they go, "Hey, YouTubers, how you doing?" What an idiotic thing to say. And they're wasting time with that. We're talking about getting right to the point and teaching you what you need to know. Rich, am I describing what you're thinking?
Well, absolutely, but there's so much more to it. It could be wild, edible, and medicinal plants. It could be nutrition. It could be homeschooling ideas. You know, alternative energy, you mentioned off-grid living, which we both do now, and I've been doing it for over 11 years. And we got to look at what we did for years, and obviously I'll touch more on that after the break, like college. Do you really think college is worth it today where 90% of the kids graduate with huge debt? And we'll talk more about that after the break.
Yeah, and homeschooling, that's a really, really important point. What is more important than your children? Tell me. What's more important? I can't think of anything. But you're talking about college and you're talking about homeschooling. Please continue.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious, folks, that young people are losing time, leverage in acquiring assets. In other words, putting money into principal, putting money into equity. And let's say you bought a piece of land and you lived off-grid. And one of the things that Vince and I want to do is combine like-minded people and possibly put them on the land, especially if they're a little compromised with money issues. Okay, so I think the people realize that the mainstream media is doing everything to manufacture perception, pity, guilt, and ideology, and sway public opinion and hold on to the narratives, the memes, themes, the talking points. And that's why what we try and do here is give information to the people on the corruption, the manipulation, and the deceptive practices, the nepotism, the race baiting, gender baiting, sexual orientation, religion baiting, instead of trying to create venues and lifestyles, cultures, traditions, and heritage that's based on the same rule, law, and accountability, which we don't. And every time these behaviors continue, we get to a situation where less and less people can control their own destiny. So what if we got like-minded people together and we gave these presentations over, say, GoToMeeting.com or Skype or whatever, and we said, okay, well, Tom, Dick, and Harry has a backhoe and can build, and then Sue and Jane and Lisa is a gardening expert, and they know how to butcher animals and raise animals. And then what we do is we get like-minded people together to buy a piece of land, and we have an end game. Could be 5 years, could be 10 years, could be 2 years, could be 20 years. It all depends on the synergy of the people, the lifestyle that you've always dreamed about. But it's also a business model. You're cross-training one another, and you're creating a venue that gives you a lifestyle immediately, that gives you a business model immediately, And then after that time period is over, you sell that piece of property, and everything's pre-negotiated depending on capital resources, skill sets, labor, etc., depending on how the monies get distributed. So it turns into a business, it turns into a lifestyle, and it turns into where you can live on a piece of land that that particular individual could not afford. And it's not like we are telling people who have the money as individuals they can't do this. We're just trying to give ideas and solutions so everybody can be included. Because we're being lied to, folks. We're being lied to the point where it's overwhelming, where people who say the truth get demonized, discredited, and then they go after the certain groups, and they insult the work ethic, the ability, and the intelligence by lowering the bars of standards and expectations for getting a job. And there's no appreciation or value anymore. But I think we know a lot of the health benefits. Look at 96% of Monsanto shareholders who voted to not disclose what's in GMO ingredients. Pardon me. We have to learn about immune stimulants versus immune suppressants. We have to learn about so many things that's killing us, but our skill sets have deviated away from those old 19th century skills. And we have to look at the economic consequences as well and where we're going as a nation. For example, since 2008, we've been replacing debt for growth. 95% of the QE, quantitative easing, goes to the top 1 to 7% of the wealthiest people, depending on which author you read. So when you look at employment participation rates and between 25 and 54-year-olds, which are the main working age force in America, and you look at the U.S. and you compare it to other Western countries like Canada, Germany, and the U.K. for labor rate, there's a huge divergence between the U.S. and other Western nations. And this really started in the 1990s when Bill Clinton repealed an important part of the Glass-Steagall Act, basically turning investment/commercial banks into casinos using the people's money. See, the people aren't aware of a lot of these things because they're too busy working, they're too busy surviving. Okay? All these politically correct buzzwords that you hear me talk about, like prosperity, equality, fairness, tolerance, inclusiveness, these words mean nothing. They mean as little as the words that you hear from the globalists calling people controversial, extremist, racist, bigot, sexist, misogynist, homophobe, conspiracy theorist, intolerant, violent, hater. These words mean nothing. So many of these words have been hijacked by definition to use as a weaponized tool to divide the American people. And you got to follow the money, and you got to look at the data and the results. We're more divided than ever. And it's because the globalists are not allowing the people to control their own destiny. So, again, lowering the bars of standards and expectations for getting a job based on what group you're in has eliminated value and appreciation. And it's all done to protect the elite. You know, when you close the door on prosperity for 93% of the people, it creates more opportunity for corruption, manipulation, deception, nepotism, because these people have all the resources, especially the capital resources. And you look at things like healthcare spending as a percentage of GDP in America, we're higher than the great majority of countries. Big Pharma monopolizes everything and then you look at, with immigration, you look at the insurance, and, you know, we could always cross state lines for insurance, but they don't want to do that. And over 17% of GDP is healthcare spending. So when the powers that be create the subsidies and the money printing and the lobbyists and the PACs for big oligarchies like this, they love the fact that 17% is attributed to the GDP, which you heard me say many times that GDP should not be a unit of measure that is valid, because depending on which author you read, it takes $3 to $6 of debt to create $1 of GDP. So as we bring more and more immigrants, whether they be mostly unskilled, our car insurance rates goes up for the bottom 93% because of cost shifting, because they're not going to pay for car insurance. So when they get into an accident with you, your insurance company gets dinged, and they pass on the increased cost to you. And it's the same thing with public education and health care, like I just mentioned. And if you look at the data on businesses and startup rates, they're so much lower than they need to be for any economic growth. And there's no economic growth coming, folks. America is done. And this is why rural land, where you can control a little more of your own destiny by having privacy, by raising animals, by growing produce, doing your own structures and fencing and putting up a solar array and living off-grid is going to be so important because options are dwindling. And you can verify this with the CBO report, creating basically what the tax laws have done has created major incentives for corporations and giving huge breaks for corporations to take their businesses offshore to India and China. That includes assets, labor, and other tangible assets. And for the first $10 million, they basically don't pay taxes. And then half the domestic tax rate for going offshore compared to what they would be taxed here in America. That's the same thing for banking. And the only reason banking is making more profits because of the lower tax rates and going offshore. So the lobbyists are writing the bills for big corporate America, for the oligarchies. Congress doesn't read the bills. They create an alliance between big corporate oligarchies and big government. And so the small and medium-sized businesses cannot succeed. And as I mentioned earlier, Zuckerberg spends more on lobbyists than data breaches, censorship, and privacy failures. We are the people, the aristocracy is at war with the people, the bottom 93%. And one example would be Mueller and his henchmen, who were bought and paid for by the elite to oust Trump. And Trump is not the perfect person. No one is. We're all imperfect sinners. But if Trump tries to stick up for the average Joes, there's a war on it against the 93%, and they use the distraction, dumbing down, and division of America. But think about the wasted taxpayer dollars and how the globalists just say, oh, Trump sucks, and this, the people against Trump aren't really creating any ideas and solutions for the little people. And because Trump was responsible for this tax bill, I don't think he deserves the kudos for it. So, we have to remember the left-right paradigm, America, is false and phony. It's maybe 5% of the equation. What the powers that be are doing is using through sanctioning of the narratives, they're taking advantage of the uninformed people, and they're using the mainstream media as a venue to create a microphone to pass on the money to the uninformed, and Antifa and Black Lives Matter is a great example. And you look at Candace Owens and Kanye West and what they're going through right now because they are free thinkers, and that's what we need in America. We need free thinkers. The powers that be are also creating an artificial manufacturing of inflation, and this creates just more debts, asset and credit explosions, and it's going to end up probably in the worst depression ever. And it has nothing to do with real growth. It's just to basically feather the nest of the elite. And the way we're going is going to destroy America, culture, traditions, heritage, especially for the little guy, but again, the bottom 93%. So what we want to do, folks, is create venues, create podiums, create ideas and solutions that can be expanded for outside-the-box thinking on business models, on living, and where we can control just a little more of our own destiny. Vince?
What I hear Rich Scheben saying is, would you like to have the type of lifestyle that he has, that we have here at the farm? It's possible, and I think we can help you with that. We'll be right back. So, class, if you're interested, send an email to instructor@usaprepares.com. And I'm still tweaking the email account. It's not quite right yet, but it will be by this evening. So, if you're interested in learning more about what Rich does, what I do, our lifestyle, and if you have specific questions, we're going to try to answer them. We'll try to put together some presentations. But there's no need to do it if there's no interest. It's going to be a lot of work on our part. And we've got more than we can handle right now, but we're interested in helping those who are interested in helping themselves. But I don't think there are very many of us. I really don't. So if you're interested in insulating yourself from the next Great Depression, if you're interested in the self-sufficient lifestyle, if you're interested in homeschooling, if you're interested in living off the grid, if you want your own water well, if you want to know how to do the kinds of things we do, like save money by not paying taxes legally. I'm not talking about not paying any taxes. I'm talking about if you can avoid paying taxes. There are legal ways to do that. For example, you don't have to buy things that are new. You can buy them used. Let the other guy pay the tax. You can buy used vehicles. You don't have to buy a new vehicle. You can let the other guy take that massive hit for depreciation. When I buy a used vehicle, I typically pay about what the first guy paid in sales tax. Literally. How do you buy a used vehicle? What do you look for? How do you do it? We can teach you that too. The two last vehicles that I bought, my newest car is a 2000 Mercedes E430. My best car that I've ever bought is a 1996 Mercedes E300 diesel. I still have both of them, and they're on the road. And my newest truck is a 2004 Chevrolet Silverado V6. Now, I paid $3,000 for the Chevy pickup truck. Works great. It's the best truck we have in the family. It's got rust. It's not pretty. If I pulled into a church parking lot, people saw it, they'd probably take up a donation for me. I said, yeah, poor guy. But that's what I want. Okay? I'm not all too upset if it gets another ding in it. I'll just match the other dings. That's kind of a lifestyle. It's different. It's different from trying to keep up with the Joneses. Because all the Joneses around me have nicer, newer vehicles than we have. But they're not as good in many reasons, or many respects. So we pay very little for the things that we buy. We buy them very carefully. We buy them with savings rather than debt. And we stay out of debt. And when you stay out of debt, it's kind of a neat thing. The only things that are recurring for us that we have to solve, one is insurance, and the other is taxes. Those are the two that we can't solve easily yet, but we will. And that was another thing that we can talk about, self-insuring. You don't have to buy insurance. You can self-insure. You don't have to have homeowners insurance unless you have a mortgage note. Right? You can say, the heck with insurance, the heck with that $3,000 a year. And you mentioned something very interesting, Rich. You said insurance companies are saying, there are people that don't pay their insurance bill, so you have to pay them. Well, it's happened to us. There was a tornado in Joplin. Our insurance doubled. Our farm owners policy doubled. I said, what's going on? They said, well, you heard of Joplin, right? And I go, yeah, but do we live in Joplin? No, but we have to pay for Joplin. That's the kind of stuff that goes on. Yeah. And we're going to teach you how to get free from much of that, if you're interested. The email is instructor@usaprepares.com. Instructor@usaprepares.com. We'll be back right after the top of the hour news and commercial announcements. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Rich Scheben's with us. And, we're talking about our lifestyle. And one of the things that we talked about is avoid paying taxes. So Gwyneth Isaacs was, and I'm just going to give you a 30-second story. Gwyneth Isaacs recommended a book a couple weeks ago called The Richest Man in Babylon. I went on the internet, I found the book. The cover price when it was published, and I believe it was published in the 1960s, $10.25. And I paid, I'm looking at the receipt, $11.45 with shipping. Looks like it's a brand new book. It looks like it's never been read. Now, Why am I telling you this? Well, because I want to know more about it. I'm going to talk about it on the air as I read it. It just came in just now, just in the U.S. mail. Tax deduction. It is a tax deduction. Why? Because I'm going to use it in our broadcast classes. I'm going to talk about it. So I felt I needed it to discuss and give you some tips. So that's a tax deduction for me. And then I was thinking, as the intro to the top of the hour was playing, I was thinking, how does this apply to our class? Okay. Well, of course, if they start their own business, and we'll teach you how to do it in this little village, you can take tax deductions the same way I just did. Now, I'm announcing to the IRS that I am going to deduct this book purchase. I'm telling them worldwide that I'm going to do this. And it's all above board. It's not sneaking around. It's all above board. Now, I was thinking, so how could this apply to our little village if we end up building a village? Well, that's really simple. So wouldn't it be nice if our villagers who participated decided they learned some things that they wanted to share with the rest of the class? So then we have the whole village involved in this broadcast. And let's say they buy a book and they want to tell the rest of the class about it, tax deduction. If they buy a piece of machinery that they want to teach you how to use as part of their business on the radio, tax deduction. So we could have 100 different instructors as part of this village, all taking their turn in the seat that I'm sitting in right now, broadcasting and teaching. And now we have the university teaching others how to do what we have figured out how to do, sharing their knowledge the way we're sharing our knowledge. Rich, do you see it going this way?
Well, I see it going that way and many more tangents. It could be commerce for the people involved. It could be a lifestyle. It could be a way out off the hamsters on a treadmill running to nowhere. I mean, look where we are at in this society. You know, the debt is totally unsustainable. And I say debt, I mean everything. Corporate household, government promises, global, the demographics, the credit, the pensions, the valuations, everything is a headwind for future growth. And as you know, the game is rigged. And I blame four things, generally speaking. And that's demographics, central bank corrupt monetary policies, Keynesian economics, and group identity politics. And I put the biggest blame on group identity politics because it has lowered the bars of standards and expectations, not only for getting a job and keeping a job, but that cancer, that poison of lowering the bars of standards and expectations based on what group you're in, has literally created a divide and conquer strategy. And it's eliminated the ability for 90+% of Americans to live their dream. And that's why I always say beware of these politically correct buzzwords. And they're using accountability, diversity, democracy, humanity against us. They don't mean what they say. We've allowed the elite to destroy America from within by rewarding mediocrity. We are now a country of the law of diminishing returns. The elite have turned the United States of America into the divided groups of America, where certain things like opportunity, knowledge, productivity, innovation, ingenuity, all the things that made us great is now only available for the elite and their ilk and minions. Look, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't predict the future. Nobody can. But how do you know where we're going, folks? Is the U.S. dollar going to hold value? Is it going to be SDRs monitored by the IMF? Is it going to be gold or silver? Is it going to be crypto? Which one? Is it going to be the petro yuan from China? Who really knows what direction things are heading? Because common sense and logic no longer plays a role. It is now corruption, manipulation, deception, and nepotism that is controlling the way too many people think. And it's just math. It's just math, okay? So how many times have you heard me, America, over years, and not just on this radio show, talk about quantitative easing for the people. I've given specific details on how it would help the bottom 93%. I've talked about practice what you preach laws, which, when you hear me stand for principle, there's 3 criteria. The same rules, laws, accountability for everybody. Truth, not based on truth, truth. And if somebody has less consequences for their behavior because of what group they're from, you do it too. And that's the only way to wake up the masses. So that being said, none of this is happening, including Chapter 15, which in the book, which I talked about, self-sufficiency preparedness schools. Does not have to be labeled that way, but basically it's what Vince and I are talking about right now. That's dovetailing 19th century skills with 21st century technology. Are you tired of the fact that you can't even tell a joke in the hallway anymore? Or compliment somebody on their fitness level? Have you heard the assault that the NFL is doing on cheerleaders? Do you know how much hard work it takes to be fit and to choreograph and coordinate dance routines? That's all about raising the bar of standards and expectations. Hard work, effort, proven results, and qualifications no longer matter. And this is why this idea might hold some water. And, Vince, if it's okay with you, I haven't done this in a while, but I'm going to try and be as quick as possible. Is it okay if I talk about my high jumper employer analogy, which I haven't done in quite some time?
Yeah,
this is what America is today, folks. Let's say I'm an employer, and I am employing high jumpers, okay? So what I do, and this is the way America used to be, what I do is I'm going to raise the bar for high jumpers to 6 feet. And let's say there's 500 people who are trying to fill out applications and become an employee for me. So 1% of the people, I'm making a long story short here, 1% of the people pass. So 5 people clear the bar at 6 feet because that's what the job entails. Okay? And then I look at those 5 applicants and I say, what's your work ethic like? What's your word of honor for showing up for meetings? What's your fitness level like? What's your diet like? Basically, all the things that the so-called globalists say is either fat-shaming or basically lowering the bars of standards and expectations. So the way America was built is I choose one of those 5 applicants based on hard work, effort, proven results, and qualifications, which no longer matter in this country. Now, today, I can't raise that bar for the 500 applicants to 6 feet. I've got to have it at 6 inches. So 99% of the people pass the first qualification for the application, be an employee for me as a high jumper. So now, out of the 495 applicants, I got to segregate the application via skin pigmentation, via gender, sex, sexual orientation, ideology, religion. So what we've done through Hegelian dialectic, professional wordsmithing, subliminal messaging, media propaganda, all subsets under group identity politics, which is a subset under political correctness, we've lowered the bars of standards and expectations. So all of a sudden, we've insulted the work ethic, the ability, and the intelligence of all these people who say, by the elite, that you can't compete, that your work is suboptimal. So we degrade and disrespect all those people, which foments divide and conquer and not synergy. So we don't empower that nation, our nation, or any group by lowering the bars of standards and expectations. Everything is upside down, where you can have victim group status and be a bully at the same time, all protected by the elites. And this is meant not to make our country great, but to make the people submissive, to break their will, so they could be called racist, bigot, sexist, misogynist, homophobe, intolerant, violent, hater, et cetera, et cetera. So the individual who brings this up in public gets demonized, discredited, and delegitimized. And that's why the MSM uses satire and banter on late-night shows, because they know they have fake news, and they know that we know that they're all bought and paid for. So how is the bottom 93% who are hamsters on a treadmill going to control their own destiny? Is this idea the end-all? Is this the best idea in the world? Is this going to make everybody happy? No. No one's going to make anybody happy but yourself. But I'll tell you right now, I'd rather fail at an idea or even be angry than be in despair. And you can see that with obesity, with drug use, with the workforce participation that I mentioned earlier in the show, and much more that we talk about on a very regular basis. People don't have options anymore. The bottom 93% don't. We don't believe anything the mainstream media says, and that's very obvious, because all they do is feather their own nest, lie, propaganda, race bait. And we'll talk more about that after the break.
Yeah, we'll be right back. Rich Scheben, offgridmontana.com.
Well, I want to just finish off what I was saying with people. Aren't we us Americans, who have had the luxury of freedom and liberty, who have had millions of people die for our Bill of Rights and the Constitution? And it's pretty obvious that freedom, liberty, time, and health is waning dramatically, especially for the little guy. And again, little guy's the bottom 93%, the poor middle class that have merged together. Aren't we tired of GMO foods? Don't we want to say no to hormones, steroids, and antibiotics? How about vaccines, wars, geoengineering, pedophilia, chlorine, chloride, and 200 other chemicals in our water? The elite saying that meritocracy does not work. Basically, practicing what they preach and holding on to the narratives and not giving us a platform. It's up to us who are tired of the lies, the propaganda, and the false flags. Create our own venues and platforms by, for, and of the people. Because if we don't, everything that made us great in the United States of America will be gone. Aren't you tired of people getting run over by vehicles? Aren't you tired of the elite who, when they have their venues, they have armed guards everywhere, but you're not allowed to? Aren't you tired of the elite saying that we need to have carbon taxes for the people, but yet they fly around on jets, often private jets, often via taxpayer dollars, fly around the world, often having multiple homes, often having huge 10,000 square foot homes, while the rest of us are struggling to pay off our mortgage or even renting? Aren't we tired of saying hypocrisy and double standards and hearing that's just the way it is? That'll never change. Well, here's a chance. I don't know where this is going to go, but here's a chance where we can get people together and give presentations and then maybe get the Tom, Dick, and Harry and the Sue, Janes, and Lisas together and make your dream come true. Control your own destiny. Have a healthier lifestyle, and just think outside the box. And all I know is if you don't knock on the door, it'll never open for you because the odds are against us. Because the aristocracy has an addiction to power, money, and control. An addiction just as great as the meth addict down the street. And they've ruined so many lives. So many. So how can the bottom 93% of Americans get together, have synergy, cross-train, create a lifestyle, communicate with words, not with the technocracy and Facebook and Google and stuff like that, but actually create ideas and solutions where we can make a difference. Vince?
A few days ago, Mrs. Finelli and I went for a walk in one of our fields. It happens to be a corral field, about 4 acres or so. And we're building a new corral there to handle cattle. Now, there's a reason why I'm telling the class this. I said to Mrs. Finelli, just look at the grass. Look at the field. It's flatter. The bumps are taken out. It's the best it has ever been in 13 years, as long as we've owned it. It is really nice. It's beautiful. Okay? Now, it didn't get beautiful on its own. We mowed down the brambles, the stickers, the briars, the thorn locusts. We let the cows feed on there. We unrolled the hay there. We seeded it with unrolling hay, and the cows stomped in the seeds, and their manure and urine augmented the soil, and it's really fertile, and it's really, really nice. The reason I'm mentioning that is that was 13 years of our lives that went into that particular field as well as all the other fields on this farm. So the question that I have for the class is, okay, when you go out and you look out your window or you look at your property, look at what you've accomplished. Is that what you want to have accomplished? Or would you rather have something else? And I'd like to continue this discussion for just a couple more minutes and just to tell another story about why we do what we do. And maybe you want to do the same thing. Rich Scheben and I will be right back. So many people go to work, hate their jobs, go to restaurants to feel a little bit better, go to ball games, buy that big TV screen so they can view their $120 a month cable or satellite TV feed. They mow their quarter-acre to half-acre lots. They manicure them. Is that what you want? Or do you want something more? Okay. I talked about Mrs. Finelli and Mrs. Finelli and I walked out to a field and we thought that was the best it's ever looked, as long as we've owned it, because we worked on it to improve it. So if you want more, you're going to have to leave the suburbs. You're going to have to leave the city if you want more. You're going to have to go to where land is more affordable, where the taxes are lower, where the restrictions are lower, less, where the government help is less, where they're not crawling all over you with building permits and so forth. So if you want to do that, how do you do that? Well, if you want to buy a farm or a ranch, we know how to do that. We've done it. During the commercial break, I just did a quick tally. In the last 33 years, Mrs. Finelli and I have bought 17 properties. 17. Now, I don't want you to think we're transients and we just buy them and leave. That's not the case. 11 of them were investments. We can teach you how to do that too. So we can teach you to have more, how to have more. And I'm not talking about greed. I'm just talking about to have accomplishments that you'll love and have a different lifestyle. Get away from the pollution. If you want to get away from unhealthy, you've got to leave where unhealthy people are. If you want to have more, you've got to get more of what costs less. I think 1 acre of our farm costs less than 1 square foot in New York City.
Absolutely.
Probably 1 square inch in New York City equals 1. I'm probably not exaggerating.
No.
I look at the cost of on the internet. These people are selling their $25 million mansions, and I look at their $25 million mansion, and I look at my farm and farmhouse. I got to tell you, although we don't have the tennis court and the theater and the pool, I'd rather have our farm any day. I'd rather have Rich's Ranch any day than what these actri have spent fortunes on. People measure happiness and wealth by granite countertops. Seriously? Granite is radioactive. Come on into my radioactive kitchen. You're going to be impressed. Makes no sense to me. Our kitchen is Formica. Works great. We can disinfect it. We can clean it. We can teach you how to live frugally. We can teach you how to have a wonderful lifestyle. For example, Rich, does anybody tell you what to do? I mean, I know your girlfriend and you discuss what you're going to do, but other than you agreeing on, schedules and things like that, does anybody make you do anything you don't want other than pay taxes?
Well, and insurance. Of course, there's obligations to our animals, to the property, but we don't even look at chores as that definition. We look at it as a lifestyle and doing what we enjoy. Land is not for everybody, I'll tell you right now, but it is a lifestyle. It gives you new skill sets. It could be a survival situation, a bug-out situation, an investment. It could be for privacy, freedom, love of nature. I mean, I've given plenty of tours on edible and medicinal plants, off-grid tours. It got so overwhelming, I had a small production company create a DVD video, which even shows the inside of my cabin on how we live. But, folks, we're all losing ground. I'm just reading one website right now. It's called The Horn News. And let me just share some of the headlines on here. Busted. NBC News accused of protecting alleged pedophile ring. Next one, how America will perish. Former CIA official issues shocking warning of imminent terrorist attack on America. Next article, 10 pedestrians killed in Toronto van attack. Next article, Elizabeth Warren sued for extortion. Bombshell revealed on video by her opponent, he's filing a lawsuit that would humiliate the Massachusetts liberal. This is just 4 articles on the front page of one news source. I'm not saying we're going to be exempt from all this, but I am saying that you're going to have a little more opportunity to control your own destiny. And what life is really about, we're all imperfect sinners, we're all human, but it's really about helping others. And that's what I do on the air when I give a talk, or in the book, or the DVD. I'm not saying to go out and buy the book and DVD. I'm not pushing it. In fact, if anything, I deter it, because the powers that be have done everything to move the words around. And this is not just in the electronic book, but in the digital paperback as well. They've done everything to eliminate chapters, introductory chapters, take things out of context, move the words around. They've deleted 5-star reviews and replaced them with 1-star reviews. They're doing everything to make sure the people does not learn about self-sufficiency or thinking for themselves. They said my book was out of stock. We're living in the censorship surveillance world today, where they don't want information to get to the people. They've misspelled the book title, so search engines couldn't pick it up. It's getting to the point where it's very difficult for people to get information that's going to make their life better. And this is the reason why we're doing this. We don't know where it's going to go. We realize the powers that be through Google and Facebook is going to delete and censor a lot of the information that comes to us. We realize that they're going to say that we're money launderers and pedophiles and we're convicted felons and we're this and we're that and we're racist and we're bigot and we're sexist, misogynist, conspiracy theorists. Basically, they're going to accuse us of everything that they are. And what we need to do is create synergy in America. I don't care. We don't care what skin pigmentation you are. We don't care what gender you are. As long as you keep the bars of standards and expectations high and you don't expect special treatment because of what group you're in. We are the United States of America, not the divided groups of America. So that being said, Vince, I know we're running out of time, and I know you have a few more things you want to say, so I'll give you the floor.
Well, the email address, if you'd like to contact us, will be tonight, instructor@usaprepares.com, instructor@usaprepares.com. Now, Rich, I mentioned, or I asked you the question, are you made to do things that you don't want to do? Are you being controlled? Are you being forced to do things? And you mentioned the animals, and yeah, you have an obligation, but that's because you wanted to, right? If I walk out the front door of our house, there's a little concrete overhead, there's a roof over the front porch. We have 2 cows that are sleeping, and 2 little calves that are sleeping on the front porch right now. And because we let them, because they were bottle calves, their mothers, actually the moms died. And so we've been feeding them with bottles, and they're the size of a very large dog right now. And Bessie and Joe. And we call them, they come running, they come for their bottles. We feed them 3 times a day. They want their hugs. They love us. Actually, they think we're mom and dad. It's a lifestyle. Now, that's an obligation. Feeding these calves is something that we have to do 3 times a day with bottles until we wean them off the bottles. But that's because we want to. Now, imagine a lifestyle like that. Is that something that appeals to you? If it does, we can help you. I got a call from our son a couple days ago. He was traveling. He was out of state. And he said, "Hey, Dad, the ML320, That's the vehicle that he took with him. It's a 1999 Mercedes SUV, and it's got almost 300,000 miles on it. He said, check engine light came on. I don't have the code reader with me. You've got it, Dad. And so he was able to borrow. What you do is you put a deposit on. If you go to the auto parts stores, you can put a deposit on a code reader, and you can read the codes. And he said he read off the codes to me, and I said, okay, I agree with you, son. You need a crank position sensor. He said, well, I already looked it up, and all I need is this one tool to remove it and unplug the wiring harness, and I can just climb on top of the engine. It's right where the bell housing meets the engine in the back, and I can replace it. And I said, well, great, that's what you should do. And by the way, it's under warranty at O'Reilly's because I've already replaced that about 2 years ago. It comes with a lifetime warranty, so get one from O'Reilly's and it'll be free because it's a lifetime warranty. Now, why am I telling you this story? The reason I'm telling you this story is imagine having this village and you being able to call somebody in the village and saying, I have this problem with my vehicle, I'm out of state, what do I do? Now, a typical person would say, shoot, the vehicle doesn't run, it's stuck in a parking lot, I guess I'll call the towing service, we'll have it towed to the service station or the dealer, and they'll say, hey, Mr. Jones, I got to tell you, it's pretty bad, this vehicle's pretty old, there are plenty of new ones we can sell you, they're in the lot, or we can sell you a used one, or it's $1,200 to fix this problem. The part is $30, $30. So, why did I mention a little story about the crankshaft position sensor and the problem that our son experienced? Because he had somebody to call. He picked up the phone and called Dad and said, hey, Dad, here's what's happening. Here's what I've learned. What do you think? Okay. I gave him my advice and opinion, and he said to me, hey, I went to the internet and there was this guy who said, yeah, all you have to do is pull off the connector and blow it off with compressed air and it'll work. That's a wish. The reason it worked is because when the guy took off the connector, he disconnected the battery, the computer reset, the computer thought that the crankshaft position sensor was working okay and it works for a little while, then it fails again. Now, do you want it to fail when you're on a long trip? I don't think so. So the real answer is to replace it. And that's what I told him. So now, who are we? Well, at USA Prepares, we are different. We are different from all other broadcasts. I don't think there is a single broadcast in the United States that is like us. I'm not bragging. I'm just telling you that I believe that we have more experts, more advice, more experience, more opinions, more willingness to help as volunteers than any other broadcast. And so what Rich Scheben thought of, this is all his idea, this is not my idea. He thought that we could share in a more personalized way instead of just broadcasting, more personalized, more directed, more specific. You want to buy a farm? We know how to do it. You want to wire a generator? We know how to do it. As a matter of fact, on Friday, hour number 1, I'm going to be doing a solo. Generators. A lot of information very quickly about generators. Diesel, gasoline, propane, how to pick one, how to size one, how long they last. Most of the questions that you would have will be answered on Friday, hour number 1. Now, if you think that you can contribute to that, you can give us a call. 866-582-9933 if you want to join me. But I plan on being alone. But if you want to contribute, if you think that you can help with this class on generators, 866-582-9933, hour number 1 on Friday. So if you think that you're interested in learning more about whatever you're interested in, that you think we can help you, you can send an email to instructor@usaprepares.com, and I'll read them all. I'll read them all. And we'll see if we can put together a delivery system. Now, what would that delivery system be? Well, it may be a conference call. It may be not just one conference call, but a series of conference calls. The first one will be the first one, but it won't be the last one. It may end up being come to a farm, and we'll show you how to do it. It may be a convention. and we'll show you how to do it. We're not really sure. Depends on the interest. So those are my thoughts. But we're interested in your opinions and counsel. Rich?
Well, Vince, as I've mentioned many times over the year, robotics, automation, artificial intelligence, and the technocracy that comes with it is going to take tens of millions of jobs. And we are in a stagflationary hybrid disaster. And our whole country is controlled by the subsidies, the money printing, the special interests, the lobbyists, the PACs. The lobbyists write most of the tax bills today. Congress doesn't even read the frickin' bills. You look at, I'm sure you've all read about the lettuce scare that's going on with an E. coli breakout around the country.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You know, when you just look at the red/blue map in America, in other words, the Republican-Democrat map, and you see how Trump won basically 95% of the country as far as landmass goes. Most of those blue counties have rural property. So we're not talking Montana, we're not talking Missouri, we're not talking any specific place. We're saying that you have the ability to change your lifestyle in your given state and have control of your own destiny, especially with food, lifestyle, options, foresight, things that have been taken away from the poor/middle class. Vince?
I absolutely agree. And, with the time that we have left on the planet, we're willing to share and teach you. But we need to know if you're interested. If you're not, that's okay. We just won't do it. So I'm thinking that maybe a few people are going to be interested, and we're going to find out, and we'll keep you posted as to how it goes. Rich Shealy, thanks so much for being with us.